How dare you come into my house, into my gecko's crib, and think you finna just get away with it? No, we're not doing that today. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Mila. If you have not seen me before, if you have, hey guys, welcome back. And today we're going to talk about how to get ants out of your reptile enclosures. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't think this would be me. Honestly, okay, I just didn't even think it would be a thing. It's just something that never freaking crossed my mind. Okay, like the little gnats and stuff like that, yeah, maybe. But ants? Ants. How'd you even get here? How did you get here? Nobody's supposed to be here. But like, for real though, I am trying to be a little bit cautious about how I treat it, just because my Crested Gecko tank is also bioactive. So I'm nervous about simply throwing all the substrate away or putting some type of poison in the substrate. I don't really know how to handle it, and so I'm gonna kind of figure it out as I go. But first things first, I'm gonna start out cleaning this thing top to bottom. And really, his enclosure needed to be completely overhauled anyway, and so it's kind of on time. Because he was going to get upgraded in the near future anyway, so it's the right time to go ahead and take everything out. Most of the plants are dying anyway, and start fresh. So I'm going to do that today. I'm going to take you guys along with me so you can see exactly what we ended up working with. Okay, real quick, just to show you guys what we are working with. Sorry for the weird focusing next to the window, but let me see if I can close out some of this light. So this is where my tanks are, just because I'm temporarily living with my mother, and so everything is kind of in this one corner. And so my Crested Gecko tank is this guy right here. I just have a 20-gallon turret on his side so that it'll be more vertical for him. And I just got baby T, you can see him right there. My rose hair tarantula in this enclosure. And then so this was the empty enclosure that I had, and it was already set up bioactive. So it had a plant growing in there and everything, so I figured I might as well put something in this enclosure. So I decided to put some crickets in there. You can kind of see one right there. And so the idea was that they would feed the soil and keep this plant keep this tank kind of cycling, so to speak. And so I thought it was a good idea, and then I don't have to clean them up as they die, because then my cleanup crew can just clean them up. But I don't know if this actually led to my ants. As you can see, they're right on top of my gecko enclosure, so it could be that ants were attracted to the smell of the crickets dying, and then found out that my gecko had some perfectly good food in his tank and decided to devour his food. I'm really not sure, but this could be the culprit. So when I initially recorded this video, things got a little weird, because after I gutted my Crested Gecko's enclosure, just a few days after that, I ended up moving out of my mom's house and into my own apartment. So I was not able to completely record this video in the way that I wanted in that same location. So now we're like a month since I did the initial recording. But the good thing about that is I can kind of give you an update on what I did and if it worked for me. So the thing that I ended up doing was I completely gutted my Crested Gecko's enclosure. I took out all the hides, all the decoration, all the substrate, everything. So I disinfected the hides and the decorations. And as far as the substrate, originally I thought I was going to have to toss it, but I raked through it. I made sure there was no ants in there, and I decided to keep it since it was bioactive and I didn't want to trash it. So then I put everything back into the enclosure, and when I moved it back into the house, instead of putting it in the same location, I kept it in the same room, but instead of having it on the floor, I moved it to the table on the opposite side of the room. I also made sure to vacuum the floor because it was a carpeted surface, and I didn't really have an ant problem after that. I did see a few straggler ants in the bathroom that was connected to the bedroom, but ultimately it just seems like they were kind of on to better things. I just did not really have an ant problem anymore after that. Now, of course, I ended up moving out a few days later, so not really sure. My mom hasn't called me to tell me of any ant infestation problems in the bedroom, so I think we're good to go. And it might have just been that, you know, it hadn't really got to a serious problem when I found out about it, or I'm not really sure, honestly. But that worked out for me. That's the first solution I offer to you, is to thoroughly clean out your enclosure, and if you can, move it to a different location in the room, especially get it off the floor if it is on the floor. My second suggestion to you is, if you're keeping crickets, to keep them in a hygienic way. So originally I thought this was the reason that I was getting ants. It turns out that ants are attracted to the smell of the decaying crickets. So when you have crickets that die off, do not keep them in whatever you are keeping your crickets in. Toss them out, get rid of them quickly. I even recommend not overbuying crickets, especially if you know that you don't go through as many as you are buying, because they're just going to die off anyway. So try to keep your cricket purchases to just what you use, maybe a few more, and then try to keep it as hygienic as possible. I actually keep my crickets in a bioactive critter keeper type vibe. It's just a small little enclosure, and you've actually already seen it. So I think keeping them in that bioactive setup actually helps. My cleanup crew breaks down the dead crickets and their poop, and so I think that's the best way to keep it right now. At first I thought it was the cause of the ants, but after realizing that I didn't find any ants in there, I actually think it's pretty clean. My third way is insecticides. So obviously you don't want to spray any type of poison or anything in your enclosure with your animals, because you don't want to harm them. That's a no-brainer. However, you can pretty much do anything you want outside of the enclosure. And so one of my recommendations would be to get some type of spray insecticide and spray the perimeter of the room that you are keeping your enclosures. You would spray at the bottom of the baseboards around the perimeter, just to kind of deter them from entering the room in the first place. This one is specific to ants and roaches. They have different variations of Raid and even other brands, so you can get whatever you like. I just prefer this brand. While we're on the topic of chemical warfare, I also recommend bait traps. So when I was doing research, forums seemed to suggest taro bait traps in particular. I don't have any bait traps because I didn't end up needing them, but this is something that I use from the Taro brand. So just to kind of show you their branding here. Oh, it's on the opposite side. So just to kind of show you their branding here, these are actually fruit fly traps that work really well, and I actually like these. Just a plug if you're trying to get rid of fruit flies. Our fifth way of getting rid of ants would be regular old dish soap. So what you can do is you can actually mix dish soap and water together in a bowl, and then you put it, and then what you essentially do would be putting your enclosures in the dishwater. So if you have a really big enclosure, this would kind of be hard to accomplish. But if you have smaller enclosures and you can get a huge pan of dishwater and you can actually fit the bottom of the enclosure in the dishwater, that will work for you. Or if your enclosures are on some type of table or something, you can actually just put the legs of the table in dishwater, and this will make it so that none of the ants can actually climb up the table or climb up your enclosure and get to your reptiles. Another passive method would be ground cinnamon. So this isn't a method that really I think I would get down with, but basically the way it works is you put a trail of ground cinnamon around your reptile enclosures, and apparently ants do not like to cross the trail, and it kind of messes up their own pheromone trail. I'm not really sure how it works, but this is supposed to be one of the natural ways that you can get rid of ants, by dusting cinnamon around your enclosures. It just seemed like it would get a little too messy, so I think we should try the cleaner methods first and then resort to that last. And then our final recommendation here is actually using distilled white vinegar. So this is 5% acidity. I would recommend the 6% acidity one if you have access to it, just because that one is a little bit stronger, it's a little bit better as a disinfectant than the one that they use for cooking. However, what you would do is you would mix 1 part vinegar to 1 part water, put it in a spray bottle, and you could spray around your enclosure. The great thing about using the vinegar actually is that vinegar can be used as a daily disinfectant for your reptile enclosures. It's also very good on glass, so you can use it to wipe down your glass, and so it's kind of like a win-win. You can use it to disinfect, and it also helps deter some of those ants. So that's it for all of my solutions. Let me know if you try any of these, and especially if they work, let me know in the comments below. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to insert a video of me cleaning out my Crested Gecko enclosure, just so you can see how that process went. If you guys want more from me, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification button if you want to be notified when I do upload. And thank you guys for watching this video. Let's go ahead and get into this enclosure breakdown. Okay guys, so I'm going to quickly try to speed through the breakdown of my Crested Gecko enclosure. This is not going to be very voiceover heavy. I'm just going to pop on here just to tell you a few things as I'm doing it. So this is what the enclosure was originally looking like. I did have that cocoa fiber background there, and I had basically adhered it to some foam board. That way I could kind of, my idea was to get my plants to kind of grow up it, but it didn't turn out as well. And again, this was a bioactive setup. So I have my weed blocker with my substrate on top, and for my drainage layer I was using clay balls. And this was originally a 20-gallon long that I turned on its side so that it can be more of a vertical enclosure for my little guy. And I did adhere that plastic piece there at the bottom with some E6000 glue and some silicone. And it seems to be holding pretty well. Even when I was hosing it down, it didn't seem to have any leakage or anything, so it did work out. And this is the background that I ended up changing to. It's just some outside turf that we were using on our patio, and we had some leftovers, so I cut it down to size and I'm using it as the background. It's waterproof, and so I think it seems like it would be easy to wipe, so I think it's going to work out better than the cocoa husk that we had going at first. So at this point I've added my cocoa chip bedding and my pothos plants, and this is a driftwood piece that I bought. That's the only new thing that I put in the enclosure. And right here I'm just trying to figure out where I want my ledge to go. So because my enclosure is on its side, I like to put the ledge where it's easily accessible through that little door. So I'm just trying to measure the height of it, and I do like for my gecko to be able to climb off the wood onto the ledge, so I kind of put it closer there as well. So that's just me trying to get my measurements right and figure out exactly where I want it. And this is a little DIY hidey ball I kind of made. I've seen real ones in the store and they're a little pricey, so I decided to make one, and I just used this silicone hook. I mean, not silicone. I just used this suction hook to put it on the enclosure. And even though the inside of that does have foam in it, which if your gecko uses the bathroom in it or something would get kind of dirty, it's relatively cheap, so you can really just throw it away as it gets dirty and create a new one. So I'm not really concerned about the longevity of the ball. And you gotta have some fake plants. I'm not the queen of fake plants. I usually like real plants, but it does provide better dripping sensations for the water when I do spray the enclosure down for my gecko. And this is a quick pan of the finished product. I really do like the aesthetic of this one way better than what I had going on at first. Now that everything's looks so fresh and so clean, as always, there's only one thing left to do. Don't forget to lock it up, take a step back, and admire all of your hard work. I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching.